Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending the session. My name is Caio Oliveira. I'm a principal multi-cloud architect here at VMware. But in spite of my title and my job, this will be a non-technical session, right? Will be more soft skill sessions. But I was yesterday in one of the Amanda's Blavin sessions, and she mentioned that sometimes the soft skills are actually the hard skills, right? And when you are presenting inside your company or even outside in a conference, right? It's always challenging to engage with your audience, and sometimes the presentation really matters, right? Of course, you have to be the focus of your presentations, but how you build your slide, how you actually drive the attention for your session will be much more important than your slides, right? So traditional disclaimer here, I'm not saying that we're gonna not having nothing under development on roadmap. This is a soft skill sessions. So I always want to give credit for people before starting. Actually, this session, this first, like I would say, iteration of this session was from a previous manager that I had, Gustavo. And after that, myself and another colleague of mine, Anderson, we started like evolving the session, adding more content, and actually more since we experienced like this sixth time that I'm presenting at VMworld. So something that I always learning, I try to incorporate to the session. Unfortunately, Anderson is not here anymore at VMware. He's working in something else, so he couldn't be join me today, right? But something that I studied 2 years in Italy, and during one of the majority of the classes there, the professor always give in the first class, I'll say, here, this would be the book for the entire semester or the entire period that you're going to be here. Actually, a lot of the contents, after I read these books, both of books, especially the first one, the presentation Zen one, the blue one, kind of changed the way that I started presenting and starting thinking about the way I deliver all my sessions, right? Because if you see today, like even like before today, on the 20th century, what we had, right? The access to information was really hard to find, right? You pretty much had to go to libraries to research a lot and do all the analysis to present whatever you want to do. And this is in any topic, right? But now in the 21st century, is the totally opposite that we have, right? We have too much information, right? If we see here, just only during this week, we have 914 sessions with more than 1,000 speakers. So imagine like in the average, like 30 minutes, 45 minutes of the session, the amount of content that we have here, we definitely need to synthesize what's really important, right? Of course, a lot of topics, a lot of themes, not everyone is interesting, but only the amount of content that we have here during this week is tremendous, right? And when you're doing a presentation, you not only want to give specific information, right? Like when you go, you want to, oh, how can I reach out, go for example, the west, the Moscow west. Oh, you just cross the street, go right, and you get there, right? When you're doing and delivering content that you want, you actually need to guide your audience on what you want to drive them, right? You have to build the story. But for you to do that for every presentation, you actually have to prepare yourself. I think the preparation is actually much more important than the delivery, right? Because you have to prepare all the preparation piece, I would say. Then you have the design. So when you're designing your slides, how you're preparing, how is your environment, and of course the delivery. But I would say that I normally spend about 80% of my time on the first phase, the preparation phase, right? So I will talk each of those like during the session. Also, feel free to ask questions. I think we have plenty of time on the 30 minutes. I will do some breaks. So if you have any questions or any comments, please feel free to ask, right? So starting with the preparation phase, right? The first thing that you need to do, and sometimes this is challenging depending on the environment that you are. For example, here, the first thing that you need to do is to know your audience, right? Here for me was kind of hard, right? We have in the when you are presenting at VMware Explore, VMware World, or whatever, you have a list of the people that might be attending, right? So I have but I only know the role, what the country. So, but normally when you're like assistant engineer or a sales specialist, normally you know the audience that you're talking to. You're going to talk to a VP. You're going to talk to a more technical audience. So you have to prepare your session. It's always hard to have like one single deck that fits all, right? Is what I actually have is like a lot of like slides that I can hide depending on the audience or even recall if I need to show something more in depth that I need, right? So because the real importance is that every presentation should feel the audience should feel that's unique, was especially built for them, right? So, for example, here I always try to understand if I'm talking to a CIO, what are their concerns, what they're looking for, what their issues, right? What they're expecting for the presentation, especially regarding time, right? Normally, when you're talking to a more C-level, you have like 15, 10 minutes, right? You don't have too many time for slides, right? When you have a more technical audience, normally you have more time, like 45 minutes, an hour, but that's even, it depends. The more important is that you can deliver and explain exactly what they are wanting from the beginning. Of course, doing a research first, right? Talking to your counterpart to see what they're expecting for that. What's the outcomes that we're gonna need to deliver for them, right? And I always try to incorporate myself in the presentation. Of course, we know that sometimes we have like the corporate slides, but you always have to bring yourself, your personality to your presentations to make it more, I would say, to for the to have joy, because you have to always have a smile on your face. You have to be there to really deliver. It's not only something that you do every day, especially if you're doing something the same thing every day. You need to find ways to make it more interactive, I would say, right? But of course, always try to be, you have to put some guardrails, right? You don't have to invent too much, because sometimes you can deviate from the topic and it's hard to come back, right? You have to keep in mind like time, what you want to deliver, what will be the outcomes, and what will be the next steps, right? So this is important. Like you have to redraw, change the orders of your slide or presentation, or even the story that you're building. That will be really important. And one thing that is always important for you to do, make some pauses. And you mentioned what's a chocolate here, right? It's actually chunks. That there's some studies that people always try to get focused or to remember the things that you mentioned on the beginning of the conversation or at the end of the conversation. In between is really hard for them to understand. So when you make that like your presentations in chunks, make pauses, ask questions for the audience, will be easier for them to get more information at the end of your sessions, right? And one thing that's is really important, that people will always forget about facts, but they will always remember stories, right? That's why I tell about the story like on the beginning I did on purpose about the time that I studied in Italy, right? Especially the number of attendance here in in VMware. So making that as part of the experience that you have will be really important. And one of the mechanisms that we always see in movies, in series, that you actually can incorporate into your presentations is what they call the basic film paradigm, right? So you have the first piece when you set up all the stages, you present the characters, then you start building the story on top of it, and you have like what we call the plot point. We have a confrontation, right? There's especially you, and you have to bring like drama, things like that. To after that, you get into the resolution piece, right? There are other ways for you there are other, I would say, designs that you can follow during the presentation, but this is one that works really well when you're building kind of what you're trying to deliver, right? Another great concept that I like to use, this is for people who know Simon Sinek. He always calls about what's the golden circle, right? Normally people try to tend to start with what, like, okay, I will do like in one of my customers, I will go to a technical presentation. So normally I would say, oh, I worked on the beginning of my career here at VMware. I was the NSX specialist for Latin. So before like knowing Simon Sinek and the Golden Circle, I would say, oh, NSX is a network virtualization platform. Oh, how you do it? Oh, they have like controllers, the NSX manager, and they talk to each other. And YO is used for example, for you to virtualize your environment, you reduce the number of switches, load balance, and things like that. But the impact when you do the opposite, especially depending on the audience, is start with the why, right? You always start with talking about the customer challenges, right? To actually create empathy, because when people identify a problem or a potential issue that they have, they will pay more attention on that. So after that, you will talk about the actions that will fix those challenges, right? And here is really important for you to use verbs, right? What are the actions that will solve that specific problem? And at the end of the day, you definitely will say the what, that will be the product, right? If I strongly recommend you for looking to Simon Sinek on YouTube. He do a great analysis comparing Tesla and Apple and how they use the why, how, and what to actually explain this compass way better than I did, right? Now talking more about the slides, right? So sometimes we see a lot of content on the slides, right? But it's actually a good thing for you to start a slide using. I know sometimes people don't like to use the animations, but the white space on the slide is actually one of the concept that is talked a lot into the book that I showed in the beginning. It's really interesting because it causes the audience to pay attention, right? Because what you're expecting now, something that will be built here, right? So with that, you get the attention from the audience to expect. For example, here, oh, what is like the capacity planning? So you have much more servers that you starting putting more virtual machines, right? So this is one of the slides back on my NSX days, right? So when you start building and getting more servers to your data center, you're gonna need like bigger firewalls, right? Or more load balancing, more shared storage, right? Or like the big project. So when you start building that and use that, you got attention from your audience, right? And or another example, when start building and talking about like what's NSX actually, or network virtualization itself, you actually get those services directly into the hypervisor, right? And another thing that's really important, and I was yesterday here, so hopefully I was not the first one presenting here. So what I did before is kind of like knowing the environment, right? You have to know what's the room design. You know where is the projector, where are you gonna sit, how are you gonna present to the others. It will be whiteboards or not. Should I use the slides or not? Actually, unfortunately for this, because it's getting recorded, I can't move me because otherwise the camera will punch me in the face here. But definitely something that is important for you to not stand in front of your environment all the time. Try to use movements. Of course, a lot of movements is kind of hard, but that actually get attention for the audience on what you're trying to deliver, right? The sound as well, right? Since here, like, is like you have the other room here, but definitely I think it's important that everybody is watching well. So if you have a microphone or not, if you're going to a customer presentation, then how many people will be there, right? And when you talk about like slide design, right? In this picture here, who do you, what is the focus here? Pretty much you see here Bill Gates, but definitely a lot of text. You definitely, it's like kind of like mimics together with what's happening in the behind, right? And in all the presentations, the presenter should be the focus. Look at the difference here. Like nothing, just Steve Jobs there presenting, and that's one of the big difference when you have. So the speaker is actually the focus. The slides should be used as a way for you to kind of interact together, but the audience should be paying attention to you, not the slides. And always be in front, talking to them. This should be on the background, right? You never should be, and that's really common to say, oh, here, and I'm not seeing you, I'm not seeing your interaction, and not getting feedback. Getting feedback is really important. And luckily, we are back together in live events. I can have, because in remote meetings is there are different other ways for you to try to make presentations good, right? But I always try to say that less is more. The less you put in your slide will be better. Because one important thing, right? Reading conflicts with listening, right? So if I put a lot of text here, what do you try? You're gonna try to read everything. And when I start talking, I'll talk way slower than you can read. So it actually creates a conflict, right? Sometimes you have to put information, you have to put something on your slide. A good suggestion is that you give time to your audience to read, then you start speaking, right? If you have sometimes you're gonna have slides that you need to put information. So stop talking, let the audience know and read, and then you can continue, right? For example, I put some slides that I really don't like, and for example, this one is actually, of course, I changed all the content here, but something that like a lot of text, I don't even know where to look first, right? Sometimes using the animations will be important for you to build that. So I could potentially start with this one and then start unhiding all the other stuff. Or even if you want to put like an image on animation, right? Don't put it too small, because the audience will try to look and will start not paying attention on what you are trying to deliver, right? And talking about delivery, the last piece that's always important, like delivery, right? A good concept is the be here now. So be engaged with your audience. Look directly in the eyes. I'm trying to look. Sometimes it's hard, especially the first time I recall when I was in my first VMware doing the presentation, being on stage, and definitely you already noticed that I'm a not non-native English speaker. I'm from Brazil, right? So I have actually to translate, like in Portuguese, to talk in English. Of course, I'm getting better on that, but have to be here now and talking to your audience. Be engaged with them, like, and always be kind, right? Sometimes you don't know everything. Like, don't feel shy to say, "Oh, I don't know that. I will reach out. I will see how I can help on that." Like, sometimes people think that just because they are presenting, they need to know everything. So that's definitely nothing that you can do. Of course, your position, right? How you stand on stage is very different than you. I just could be here trying to hide behind this, or like not looking into the audience, right? So the position, the dress code itself, the attitude, right? Really making some movements despite of not trying to. There are some studies that sometimes when you're shaking too much or you're putting your hands back, you kind of is passing the information that you are afraid and or you're not comfortable when you're talking about. So when you have like a, try to imagine a normal presentation. I know sometimes it's different from presenting to like 15, 20 people, from like a whole audience, like 100 people. Sometimes people tend to present on that, but this is really important. And I think the attitude, like the attitude is what will define a good presentation. Something that I mentioned is not ideal. So having things like that are between myself and the audience kind of create like a shield. And sometimes this is not as good, right? Sometimes you don't have any other option, as myself today. I use glasses, right? And glasses, there are studies that kind of removes like 50% of the engagement, the empathy that the audience bring to you. So I try to not use the glasses when I'm presenting. And you notice that I'm not using my badge because actually badges also can distract, because if I start moving, the badges will start to hang each other and sometimes could be distracting for others. And I think the most annoying one that potentially all of you already experienced, someone with a pen. And so especially those ones, people try to click, 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 and it gets really annoying, right? So there's just some small examples, but really that could deviate the entire focus of your presentation. And again, the less that you give is more. And just to start summing up the presentation, last but not least, right, also important things when you're considering and building your whole presentation, like the opening, your posture, pausing for questions, making gestures, and of course, making a good closer, right? Potentially summarize what you had. Something that was really interesting for me that I normally we try to build a story and finish with the conclusion. But especially when you are going to your customer, sometimes the CEO, the CTO, they only have like a few minutes, right? So potentially you need to swipe and put at least the summarization at the beginning. Because if those people that have limited time like what you're going to deliver, they will probably stay for the whole presentation, right? So sometimes it's having that in mind that will be potentially really important for you to continue the presentation. And just as a conclusion, right, here is just my experience, something that I learned from Brooke, learned from presenting in several and different like conference, customer meetings, partner meetings, internal meetings, right? There's only one approach, right? There's only one rule. Only you can make a bad presentation happen, right? And it's kind of easy. You say that I use it really small words, try to engage with the audience, try to bring empathy, trying to be sincere, bring my experience together. And for any questions, I will be free here, but also feel free to reach out to me. Just I can send those slides for you if you're interested. And thank you very much for your time.